the lane. 15, 10. Touchdown, Chargers.
What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. As always, joined by Matt Money Smith. A lot of content this week, buddy. This team has been going since Monday with promo day and Camp Pendleton on Tuesday, and obviously minicamp coming to a close on Thursday. So a lot to dive into, but I have to tell you, I was down at Camp Pendleton. It was pretty awesome.
Special.
It was really, really special to see all the heroes out there. Coach Harbaugh changing the rules on the fly. Everybody was in the stands, and he said, you know what? If you want to come on down to the grass, come on down. You know, just not the playing field, but come on down. And it was just like a concert, like a mosh pit. Everyone's coming down, and obviously everybody was respectful, and it was cool to allow everybody to check out the walkthrough and then the meet and greet. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if there's another head coach in football that may be popular or more popular than the players, right? I think it's Harbaugh and Herbert, right? And Jim was so gracious, signed everything, and they had to get security to get him out of there. He wasn't going to leave. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Coach Harbaugh is just that there's a genuineness to it. It's not. And that's one of the things that I was talking to one of the beat writers today, and he was talking about how it's like, you ask him a question and he never quite answers it. It's always kind of all over the place. I said, but that's what's so endearing about him is it's so authentic, and it's like him standing there talking to these people and looking at him and saying, wait, these are our service men and women. Like, what are we doing? Just get them down here, man. Like, why is there this barrier between you and me? And that's just how he processes and how he thinks. And I don't think it's calculated. I think there's an innocence to it. And it is what makes he feels like your dad. I'm certainly too old to say he feels like my dad, but I think that's what it is there's like this very fatherly quality to him, which is often the case in football coaches, especially when you talk to players. But I think the city and the greater Southern California, the greater Los Angeles area, and most of Southern California and Charger fans for that matter are feeling pretty darn good that he's their head coach. And I think it's those moments that you just described that add to the 44 and whatever his record is, 44-19-1 record that he's got as a head coach. But it's just the person. And the genuine and the quality person that he is.
He talked about it really being kind of the SoCal Chargers, right? There's so many Charger fans down in San Diego, and it wasn't just football fans on the base, buddy. These were diehard Charger fans. I saw Seau jerseys and, obviously a lot of Herbert jerseys, Harbaugh jerseys. So to have a guy who has played in the league, played for the San Diego Chargers, and knows what the lightning bolt means to people in all of Southern California, it just felt like a really cool moment and almost something that I hope we see year after year down at Camp Pendleton.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, look, I get that many of the San Diego fans don't like me, and that's fine. I'm the voice of the Los Angeles Chargers, and they have this, romantic relationship with Josh because he was their play-by-play guy, and I get that, and that's totally fine. That is not an issue for me at all because I understand that anger and frustration, and you used to have a team that had your name in front of it instead of Los Angeles. At the same time, I feel as now I'm, going into my 7th year, I feel like, or is it our 8th year? I think it's 7 or 8th year.
This is year 8. Yeah,
so going into my 8th year, 7 years down now, I have noticed that I am engaging more and more with people from San Diego through social media, at the tailgate, walking around the stadium. There have been, and I hope that's the case. I'm not going to be foolish and say, oh, they're all coming back. I know some have written them off, but it does feel like they're starting to come back. And is, someone who travels a lot, before I got the Charger job, calling games in different spots, go to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and, I know what that drive from Milwaukee is. I know what the drive from Western Wisconsin, like, people drive a couple hours to get to these football stadiums. That's, you go to the Chicago game and you're going as far east as Michigan City, Indiana, as far north as Gurnee. I mean, as far west as the Iowa-Illinois border. I mean, those people are driving 2 hours. And I think there is something to what Coach Harbaugh was saying about doing his best to say, hey, I was a San Diego Charger. I love Los Angeles, and I'm an LA guy. You know, I've lived here for 32 years. I love LA. I love San Diego. Selfishly, it's a great city. So I'm hopeful that they'll continue, especially if the winning comes, and especially if Harbaugh is as special as we think he is. I'm hopeful that they can somehow reconcile that relationship and come back. It would be great, because having a football team that you feel passion for every Sunday is a pretty special thing in the United States.
I tell you what, man, it made me feel good. I talk to so many fans who say they love Chargers Weekly, and they're asking about money. Where's money? Every time I go somewhere, maybe not every time, but every once in a blue moon, someone will point and say, "Hey, it's Matt Money Smith." And, you know, I hope I represent you well, Money, when it's not Matt Money Smith, you know, but it was really neat to see how many people watch the podcast, listen to the podcast. And it made you feel good, because this team is really coming together. And the one observation I had from Camp Pendleton, just like an overarching takeaway, is I really do feel like Jim Harbaugh is such a big star that he's taking a lot of pressure off these players. Like, he's putting all the pressure on his shoulders, and he loves it. And I think these guys are following him, and I think it will lead to them playing maybe a little bit more freer here in 2024.
I hope so. You know, building on that and what you were saying, think about Derwin James and the caliber of star that he is. He's one of the biggest players that Oakley has signed to an endorsement deal. He's been one of the faces of the NFL when he was an All-Pro his rookie year and won a playoff game his rookie year. And certainly injuries have derailed his stardom a little bit. But he was asked today about Coach Harbaugh, and the one thing that stood out was him saying, when he walks in the room, you feel it. Because when he walks in the room, everybody knows he's in the room. Everybody sits up, and I should have the actual transcript of it so I can get it right, because
he said he's the greatest leader I've ever been around. Like,
yeah,
he did say that.
Here it is. When he walks in, he lights up the room. Everybody is full attention, no matter what you're doing or what you've been doing. He gets your attention because it means something to him. That's different than a football player paying his respects to his new head coach. He's a great leader. We love having him here. It's been great so far. That's different. Especially Derwin's not the most. He doesn't really. I don't know. He doesn't really detail things a lot. His answers tend to be a little bit shorter. He's a little laconic with his answers, but so they're typically these 2-sentence answers. But that stood out to me, was that particular statement. He gets your attention. It means something to him.
Yeah. We want to get into
notebook so I could have my notes, but I can't find it.
Where's the notebook, man?
Disaster. I know. I had the notebook out at camp today, and now I'm looking for it, and I'm all off schedule. I'm sorry.
I know you emptied the notebook.
I got enough in here.
I heard the questions. You gave some great questions to Justin and Derwin, and
he didn't like me asking him if he's going to be running the ball. He was not into that. He's like, me? I was like, yeah, you. I mean, Greg Roman coached Andrew Luck in college, Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I'm asking you. You know, are you going to be running the ball? And he was like,
he's a step ahead of you, Money. He knows he's going to run the ball. He's not going to tell you. He's not going to tell anybody. You had a great question to him too about the offense and just the illusion of the run with Greg Roman. Right. And I do think that's something. Greg Roman has not had a quarterback like Justin Herbert at the pro level. Like, you know, Colin Kaepernick was a good quarterback, but Justin's arm, the way he processes things, the illusion of the run, having a quarterback like Justin, man, that could be special.
And I believe him. I believe the answer that he gave. I don't know if it was to that question or it might have been the one before it, but it was a series. And you can watch the videos on Chargers.com. They do a great job of getting those things up there right away, so you can see I think it's important to see their facial reactions, the smiles at some of the questions, and the emotion that goes into what they're saying, as opposed to just reading the transcript or the clips on Twitter from the beat writers. They're posting those little quips. But he said, look, I might throw it 50 times one game and 15 the next. And I don't care as long as we win. And I believe he means that sincerely. And I also believe that could happen, because I saw that happen. I saw that with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman at Stanford, and we've seen it in San Francisco. We haven't seen it as much in Baltimore with John Harbaugh and Greg Roman, and I think that's part and parcel because of the quarterback. I think Lamar's legs are just so dangerous, and he is so dynamic as a runner, and he's really a better running quarterback than he is a throwing quarterback, so play to the strengths. And he's good enough to make sure he doesn't get hurt running the ball, so why not lean on that? But I think I will not be surprised one bit if that's how this plays out. If there are games where Justin's slinging it all over the yard, and there are games when he's, handing it off a whole lot. And that's what it's all about. Balance, keeping the defense guessing, not being able for them, not allowing them to get comfortable, and going out and winning games.
It was good to see Justin at the podium. He looked kind of re-energized and happy to be in this new era of Chargers football with Coach Harbaugh. And they've been going for the last 9 weeks. He spoke for, I have it here, 26 minutes. What was the main takeaways from you?
That he spoke for 26 minutes.
It's like a podcast.
I kept looking at my left, like,
pod.
I kept looking at my left, like, are you going to get him? Like, you going to, all right. I guess he's fine. Let's keep going. Let's keep rolling. Yeah, he seemed fine. He was, because he has not spoke to us all OTAs. This was the only time, and it was the very last day. So there's more to get to, because there's more that we've seen, right? We've been able to take in a lot more. We've heard from every coordinator, position coach, strength coach, Harbaugh a few times, multiple players, rookies, like the golf tournament where we got media availability. Like, we've heard so much and we've seen so much that I tip my cap to him that he was able to give us that amount of time and give us very thoughtful, elongated answers. So my takeaways, I don't even know where to start. I think it's, he just looks so much more He looks so much more comfortable, Chris.
Yes.
He really does. He normally, in his previous media sessions, he's always been very polite and kind and good with his answers. But there's this sense you get that he just wants to get out of there. Just like, hey, man, I like playing football. I want to play football. I want to hang out with my guys. The media part of this isn't necessarily something I enjoy. And it felt like he enjoyed it. He enjoyed talking about his teammates. He enjoyed talking about Shane Day being back. He enjoyed talking about the collaboration of the coaches and this collaborative effort in building this offense. And he especially, it appeared, enjoyed talking a lot about Jim Harbaugh. He really enjoyed that.
Yeah. He was talking about Zach Bryan concerts.
Oh, yeah.
We had to go all the way back to Keenan and Mike, because we have not heard from Justin since Keenan was traded and Mike was released. So, he talked about, two of the best to do it, not with the team anymore. But what I thought was actually refreshing too was the fact that the wide receivers are new, the tight ends are new, and he would say normally you would think that this is a big adjustment, but when you have guys like Hayden Hurst and Disley, who I know you mentioned, and it sounds like McConkey, he's got a long way to go to be Keenan Allen, but he could fill kind of that Keenan Allen role. Justin called him a 4 or 5 year vet. I thought, listen, he complimented all of his teammates, but the fact that he said, I want to try to get Quentin the ball as much as possible this year, I thought that was something. And I think that their relationship has blossomed in Quentin's second year.
When the pads come on, that's all going to sort itself out.
Yep.
That will all sort itself out. And I do think the wide receiver, we've talked about it repeatedly, that room is going to be an interesting one of how they decide it shakes out. And because there is some depth there now, and there are some decisions to be made there now, Quentin's not going anywhere. Quentin's going to be part of that room. Ladd McConkey's obviously going to be part of that room. Josh Palmer's obviously going to be part of that room. And I think after that, DJ Chark's going to have to prove that he's going to stick around. And, the way the deal was structured, I'd be very surprised if he didn't. I think he fills a need that they desperately, he fills something that they desperately need. A veteran that can play X and get up. We've talked about it, press, the 4-3 speed, all of that. And then I think after that, we try to figure it out. How is this thing going to get put together? So McConkey, hearing the way Coach Harbaugh talked about him, the way Greg Roman talked about him, and then the fact that Justin described him as a 4 or 5 year vet in the way that he understands and how he's already digested the playbook and what he's doing out there suggests there's going to be, what you have trust in? 5-year vets. You don't have trust in rookies. You want them to prove themselves. If you view Ladd McConkey as a 5-year vet, then that means you trust him because that's how long Justin's been in the league. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's also important because we're in we're in a bit of the silly season for the media with the NFL. It's the most popular product in America, so they're always looking for angles and new topics and how can we stay relevant when we're not going to have any games for another 3 months. So there's all these rankings that are coming out and drafts, and what if we redrafted the 2020 draft, and what let's do our quarterback rankings. And Chris Sims just did that, and he always does a great job with the rankings. And I think Justin has never made excuses, but please do not, and he doesn't need any, I'm not trying to cape for him or defend him, but it was brought up today. You're talking about a guy, came in with Shane Steichen, broke every rookie passing record. Guy is gone the very next year. The person they replaced him with could not have run a more different or had a different offensive philosophy. Shane was bombs away, run when you have a chance, use your athleticism. Lombardi was get it out. As soon as you see that opening, let's go. It was Drew Brees. He tried to make Justin Herbert Drew Brees for 2 years. And then after that, you had Kellen Moore that just never had a chance. It never worked. So when you're going through your quarterbacks and you're ranking them, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is incredible. He is incredible. He very well could end up being the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. He has been with arguably the greatest offensive play caller since Bill Walsh in the history of the league, his entire career. He sat for a year to learn the offense, and he has now been in the offense for 6 years. It's completely, it's apples and oranges. It just is. That's the reality. Joe Burrow has been with Zach Taylor his entire career. The same offense his entire career. So it's just something to keep in mind that he's been able to overcome all of this and still be, statistically one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league, even with all of that, with all of that adversity and all of that change and all of the injuries to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and losing Hunter Henry and having a new number 1 tight end. We brought that up today every single year. I can't, who was after Hunter Henry? The longtime Saint. Jared Cook. From Hunter Henry to Jared Cook to Donald Parham to Gerald Everett. This guy has not had a chance to find that continuity. And I'm hoping, and he was asked that, I assume you're hoping that this is the last one. He's like, look, it'd be nice. It sure would be nice if Greg Roman was the last one for a while.
Yeah, Greg Roman, when he was mic'd up, raving about Justin, how quickly he's picked things up. And just the photographic memory, and I think the word of the offseason has been details. But
yes,
what's been cool the last couple of days is just the coats of paint, right? The 4 coats of paint that have been put on the offense and installing it and getting more familiar with it each time there's been an install. And Justin and I think Coach Roman both said essentially we feel really good about the offense, where it's at right now. And the fact that they are doing football right now, not all 32 camps are doing football right now, Money. Khalil brought up the jersey thing yesterday, which I thought was a really great point and something that I think really can get fans thinking too. Those jerseys feel different. They're a little bit tighter. You got to catch
a lot tighter,
And the fact that you're wearing them during OTAs and minicamp, it's the littlest things. Joey Bosa talked about the littlest thing about the locker, cleaning out your locker. How you do anything's how you do everything. So those are these little things you pick up throughout this offseason. Again, I think Charger fans, they don't want to be fooled and be like, okay, you know what? We've seen this movie before, but it's just different. It feels different with a guy like Jim Harbaugh, and you could tell that he has a plan. He has a plan for Justin Herbert. One of the things that he talked about too was just like the leaders of the team. It seems like he's been just singling out, for the most part, Justin and Derwin, and he'll praise other guys, but like follow Justin on offense. Everything Derwin does, do that. Like he's kind of paring down what this is all about. Like I'm the head coach. This is the guy who wears the gold jersey. The backup quarterbacks don't wear the gold jersey. It's my rule, and do everything Derwin does. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that those guys, they show themselves through this process. Yeah. And he got into that, and it was funny. He said, he said, I had someone come up to me and say, "Hey, coach, is it all right if I wear a hooded sweatshirt under my jersey?" And I said, "Does Derwin wear a hooded sweatshirt under his jersey?" He goes, and that was the end of that conversation. But he made the point of, this is do as I do. He said, that's how you find leaders. It's do as I do. And I want you to do what Derwin does, and I want you to do what Justin Herbert does. And that's who you'll follow. And then he went on to list, how important all these he just can't help himself. He loves being around these guys. He's talking about Scott Matlock as a leader, a second-year guy that could barely get into the rotation last year, but talked about a moment on the field after it was wet and Matlock was out there patting it dry because he felt himself slip and he wanted to try to get it dry for the other guys to go through their drill. And that's the sign of a lead. Like things that he recognizes that he'll pick up on, he's always watching. He says he mentioned that he ends practice early some days and he wants to watch. Okay, so practice has ended 10 minutes early. What's everybody doing? And sure enough, they're still doing drill. And I saw it today. Today was what's called an opportunity practice. So ones don't have to go. It's the back end of the roster are going through drill or going through the 7-on-7s and the 11-on-11s. And so Justin was just kind of hanging out with the receivers, and it was fun to watch him talk to them about their routes and to Sanjay Lal and kind of get through what he was seeing. And Shane Day was there, and it was fun to watch that communication that here's your quarterback coach, here's your wide receiver coach, here's your quarterback, all these receivers, and they're just kind of doing a little bit of walkthrough, and then they'll go full speed, and then they'll have more of a conversation. And there's this, okay, let's get everybody involved and let's maximize it. So even though none of them had to be out there, coach gave them the option. You want to go in and lift, however you want to approach today is up to you. It's an opportunity practice. And every last one of them took the opportunity, and sure enough, he blows it early. And they're out there for maybe 45 minutes, something like that. So he blows the whistle early, huddles them up. Herbert delivers the address to the team, the final one before they come back for training camp. And as they're walking off, what am I watching? I'm watching Zion. It's driving me crazy that I don't have this darn book because I have all these notes.
Where's this notebook, man?
I don't know. I should actually stand up and go find it. Here, Phil, for 10 seconds, Chris. I think I know where it is.
Go. Wait, no, buddy, if you're listening to me, Jim Harbaugh, when he said that, he said, okay, if I end practice 30 minutes early, I want to see what these guys do. And they're actually doing more than what I would have asked them to do. They're doing more than what I would have done during that 30-minute period is kind of what you were alluding to with Coach Harbaugh. That was just another nugget from him at today's presser.
Yeah. And so here we go. I'm glad that I was able to get this because I want to make sure I get the name right. So Willis Patrick. So they're done. They blow it early. And Zion is working on his movements and on his technique. And Willis Patrick, number 66, comes over. And Willis is a rookie out of TCU, undrafted free agent out of TCU. And he and Zion start talking. And all these, and they've got food trucks lined up. They brought out all these food trucks. It smells delicious. I'm beyond jealous. They've got like acai bowls and a taco truck and a burger truck for all the players. And I'm just like, I want to pour my face into all of it. And they're starting to pile out. Some of the guys are going to get their lunch. And Willis and Zion start having a conversation. And next thing you know, Zion is is working on his technique on Will, and it's not just like, yeah, let me get a look. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a 5-minute deal where he's showing how he's too far open and how a swipe is going to beat him, and then he's showing how, where his feet should be, and this is going on for 5 minutes. And I think that's what Coach Harbaugh is talking about, is these guys are in it for each other, and they go above and beyond. And then when you watch them come off and all of their helmets are perfectly placed where they're supposed to be, they're taking off their practice jerseys, folding them up and putting them into the laundry basket. And people may think that's dumb and that it's the whole Tom Coughlin, if you're 2 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late kind of thing. But guy won 2 Super Bowls.
Yep.
You know, the guy, there is something to, I firmly believe it. There is nothing that look, you can call me a cranky old man that yells at clouds, but there is nothing I dislike more than not picking up after yourself as a grown man. The idea that you would just leave plates and cups and trash behind, knowing that there's 53 of you and 4 of the workers to pick up.
Yeah,
100%. Pick up after yourself. Have some respect. Have some self-respect and decency. And I think that's what Coach Harbaugh has explained, is that, and that was what Derwin got into, that these little details, and that's what Joey got into yesterday, where you may think it's nothing, but they think it's something. And if picking up my socks and making sure my locker is set a certain way means I am not going to be 1 inch off sides and get a flag thrown and ruin a play, then let's go. Then so be it, and let's go. And I am a firm believer. The old broken windows theory of Times Square when Bratton was trying to clean up New York City. I do think there is something to that.
First of all, Willis Patrick. I mean, Patrick Willis Patrick, Harbaugh.
Right.
This guy's got to make the team. He's got to make the practice squad at
Right.
least, right?
Right, exactly. It was a cool moment, though.
Joey was like, it was like stand-up comedy hour, man.
Yes,
yesterday.
it was.
It was hilarious. Somebody asked him about Jesse Minter, and he went on for like a few minutes about it. One of the defensive assistants.
His D-line coach. He's like, oh. And then he couldn't recover.
He talks really fast. And I'm just like, what? And then he's like, hold on. I was describing somebody else.
Oh, yeah. He's the best. But, that's that was, I thought, a very telling moment and a special moment. And that's what football is sacrifice. Football is unlike any other sport because there is a self-sacrifice aspect to it where you give of yourself to allow a teammate to succeed. It's an offensive lineman that allows the pocket to hold up for the quarterback and the wide receiver to connect on a touchdown pass and steal all your glory. It's Joey Bosa getting double teamed, so on the opposite side of him, someone is manned up and can beat their man and get the sack. So to hear Joey and Khalil go back to back and talk about their communication with each other, and this goes back to something we talked about, Chris, with Keenan Allen. And I said, I make no bones about it. Make all the money you can. Take all the money you can. I am never going to fault you for that. But when we talked about it, we brought up, you can't have Khalil Mack coming off a 17.5 sack season, take a pay cut, knowing that he is at the end of it, and every cent might be his last cent that he makes, and then tell Keenan, yeah, we'll keep you around for 21.5. You just can't do it. Mm-mm. And Joey alluded to that when they said, how did you come to the decision to take the pay cut? He's like, Khalil took the pay cut. It's like, that guy took the pay cut, and I want to play with him again, and I love playing with him. So for me, he said it was an easy decision that it took. He's like, the whole thing came together. It was easy. He's like, it was not a hard thing at all. And so that speaks to that room, that you have that brotherhood, that sacrifice in that room. These two guys want to see the other succeed more than themselves.
Joey's been through a lot too, Money. I mean, the injuries, he listed all the injuries that he's had over the last couple of years. And, being able to, he said, I don't want to leave this place and, it's the wrong time to leave because, things are on the up and up, right, with Coach Harbaugh. And I feel good for Joey, and I hope he can stay healthy because if he's healthy, we saw him a couple of years ago, just how dominant he was. And he and Khalil have never been able to have a full season together. And I know that was one of the things Joey talked about last year, was wanting to run it back with Khalil. Well, this time they get to run it back together, but there's also peace of mind in the room that you have a guy like Thule in year 2. And Joey said, I guess the ultimate compliment is I haven't seen much change him in it at all, because he was so good his rookie year. And to bring in a grizzled vet like Bud Dupree, you have 4 guys in that room where they can take that breath and not miss a beat later in the 3rd or 4th quarter for a play, because Bud Dupree's in the room, or Thule's in the room, or Morgan Fox is in the room. So that's definitely the strength of the defense. And one of the other things that Khalil said that I thought was really funny was talking about Ben Herbert, and how he thinks Ben is great. He goes, but like, I'm not scared of you.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It was pretty funny.
Was it Joey or Khalil and it's what we were all thinking. And so Khalil talked about taking the pay cut, and he mentioned that for those of you that didn't see it, you should. It's a quick 20 minutes. It goes by so fast.
All of them are great this week.
They really are. They're really good pressers. Highly recommend going to Chargers.com and listening to them. But he had the conversation with Coach Harbaugh and said, I want to win. I'll come back because I like these guys. I think we can win. I believe in this team. I believe in this group. And he talked about the conversation that they had. I think it was Khalil who said it, but the Bud Dupree signing, well, we haven't seen a signing like that, Chris. That's not the guy that gets signed in the second wave of free agency in the last 6-7 years. So this is different. And I think it sounded like that was an aha moment to both those guys. They were like, we signed Bud Dupree? Yeah. Yeah, I think it was Joey who said it, because he played with Nick up in Ryder. I can't remember.
No, but I think Joey did mention it, though. He mentioned something about Nick, and then he mentioned Bud Dupree. So I think
right,
that's
but
what
it was like that. Wait a minute, Bud Dupree? We signed Bud Dupree? That's sort of what Khalil was talking about when he mentioned Coach said, we have this, this, and this. And I feel good about that. But if we can get this, this, and this, or if this player can make this jump and now we have this, then yes, I believe we can win. And so it shows how honest Harbaugh is. We're not there yet, but I believe in what we're doing and the direction we're going in, and some things are going to have to work out and break the right way, but I believe they can. And if they do, we got a good shot at it. So the fact you got 4 guys and you hopefully have an opportunity, and Jesse Minter mentioned that, to rotate these guys and keep them fresh. And that was, it's another thing that we discussed. It used to drive me bat crap crazy, is in those games where they're blowouts, either way, these guys are still out there. And it's like, come on, man, get them some rest. Get these guys some rest and work. And I'll tell you what, Chris, one of my takeaways is we're sort of talking a lot about the presser, because there's not a whole lot going on the field. There's some, and we'll get into it. I mean, we can maybe even start getting into it here, because the people can go listen to the pressers. They can't. Let me just quickly go through. No, I'm all over the place. So now I can't remember where I was. On the field, where was I? I was talking Khalil, Bud Dupree, and just watching Daiyan Henley out there. It's like, team won 5 games. How is this guy not playing the last 6 games of the season? How is he not? How is it that Eric Kendricks, who has no future on this team, and Kenneth Murray, you didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He has no future on this team. That the writing is on the wall for both of these. You've got a first-year player that's gotten 0 reps. And watching him on that practice field, it's like, okay, that's what a linebacker looks like in 2024. That looks like someone 31 other teams in the league would love to get their mitts on right now. The way he moves, the way he tracks down, he covers, he fills gaps. It's frustrating to know that it was sitting right there and the guys in front of him did not play well. And that it could have been him and Drew Tranquil last year playing linebacker. That's what it should have been. Sorry.
Before we transition back to the field, because
Yeah.
I want to talk more about Henley and everything that you saw on the field. The last thing about Khalil's presser, they asked him essentially like, why would you come back? Why do you think this team's close? You won 5 games last year. He's like, when you play the game, it's different. You know how close we were. Like the 2-minute drills at the end of games, the losses that inexplicable losses, frankly, knowing that you have a franchise quarterback, knowing that the coach has won at every level. Like he has confidence in the guys that are on the defense that he's played with, but he also realizes that like they really weren't a 5-win team talent-wise, especially the guys who have come back. And then couple that with who's been added to this roster. And then finally, he revealed his nickname Smoke Show because of the drills on the field where he's literally smoking everybody on the offensive line. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, to me look, we saw it. We said it all the time. His team managed to snatch defeat from the hands of victory more than anybody else. And so much of it was just dumb, busted coverages and letdowns and not recognizing, hey, Vic, you have eaten Vic Fangio up this whole game. You don't think he's going to be bringing a blitz not here at the end of this like you don't think he's going to sell out and run zero, even though he never does? Of course he is. DJ said it before the first snap on first down in that Dolphins game. There were just so many of those. Wait a minute. You're up 4 and you got Ja Taylor outside the numbers, one-on-one with no safety help on Tyreek Hill. That's what we're doing. Like and I think that's what Khalil's speaking to. Yeah. Is there are so many. This team gave up explosives, which is exactly what the defense was supposed to prevent, right? It's like, hey, the one thing we don't do is give up explosives. We're going to put this umbrella in a shell, and you can't get outside of it. You're going to have to methodically work your way down the field, which is exactly what it didn't do. And then you had Joey echo that sentiment by saying, because he was asked about what Khalil said, about wanting to win and come back and feel like this team could do it. He was asked that same question. Hey, Khalil said this, Joey, what do you? And Joey's answer was, yeah, I agree 100%, and I feel like coaching is that last piece that we now have. And so it's not a direct shot, and you should never do that on the way out. You know, those guys are trying their hardest. They did their best. It just didn't work, and there were some frustrations involved. But it's clear they feel much different about this staff. I'll do this real quick, Chris, just because of some of the things I want to make sure I share with the people in case they don't want to go through the 20-minute pressers. I thought this was really cool, and this is something you can apply to your life. Football coaches have a million of these, but Harbaugh has more than most people. He was asked about what guys should do on the 6 weeks off, and he said 3 things: family, self, team. And it was a great illustration. If you're man enough to take care of your family, and then you're responsible enough to take care of your body, you're going to take care of the team. That's so if we can get you to know, I want you to do this in your lives away from the football field, I know you're going to be good. And that goes back to the details thing, right? If I can get you on this path of everything you do in your life, then I got no worries about how it's going to work out on the football field because you're set. You're on the right path. He said it took him 1.5 days to realize Derwin was Derwin. He said I was one practice and 1/2 of practice in to just say, yes, more, please. More of that. That's the guy. That's what we're doing. That we already talked about the leadership, and then he singled out Matlock when he talked about leaders, and he mentioned again his TED there every day. He said, "Hey, Matlock is a there every day guy." He said, you want to know where Scott Matlock's going to be? Exactly where you expect him, because he's there every day, and so that's another guy. Scott Matlock was healthy all last year. You go back and watch Scott Matlock Boise tape, that dude was a terror. And you had attrition along the defensive line, on the interior defensive line. You cut Sebastian Joseph Day. And this guy can't get out there for reps when you're a 5-win team, so we just can't get some game reps going. It's just, so I'm excited that some of these players that we were excited about, Chris, watching them in preseason and watching them in training camp, that they are getting opportunities, and that this coaching staff is like, hey, man, these are good players. We're excited about Scott Matlock. We're excited about Daiyan Henley. Like I love hearing that.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how tough it was last year. Like the wheels were off early, and it didn't seem like guys were enjoying the journey last year. And I think it's going to be different this year. Another name that was brought up multiple times by Coach Harbaugh, and I think Coach Roman too, is Trey Pipkins as a guard.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what that looks like at the end of July.
I think for me, that's a confidence thing. And it's a thank you thing. Why they keep bringing him up. Hey, thanks. Thank you for trying this. We appreciate it. You could be upset. You played tackle your whole life. Now we're trying to kick you inside the guard. You could be I think there's one, sacrifice. Thank you for making it. 2, we really do think you can do it. And 3, we need you to be able to do it. We need this to work. You're the guy, from what we've seen so far, you're the guy that we really need to really get this thing rolling. So let's give you all the confidence in the world that you can make it work. The other guy that got mentioned, and I saw it today because he had a beautiful pass breakup again today, but yesterday was his day. Tarheeb still put on a show yesterday. Intercepted Herbert once and should have had 2. Damn near had 2. And we talked about him when we said, hey, let's go through some of the guys in the draft that you're excited about. Tarheeb flashes, man. He flashes. I am not going to be surprised when he's the starting nickel. You can see it. You can see that he sees it. The way he moves, he knows where the guy's going before the guy goes there. He's got that innate sense, and he got name checked by Derwin today. He got excited. He's like, oh, the young guy's Tarheeb. Like he got excited when he talked about Tarheeb still. That dude's going to be a baller. He's going to play. That's one of the bright spots of all the rookies, because there's no pads. It's hard to get a feel for Alt outside of just how he looks standing there, right? Ladd McConkey's been exceptional running routes. Junior, unfortunately, has been banged up, so has not been out there. Aboigbe has not really had an opportunity to do a whole lot, and he's already been described as a project. But of those 2 fifth-rounders, Tarheeb still is really flashing. And then in terms of those 7th-round receivers, it's going to be very hard for them. It's going to be it'll be very hard for them to crack and get into this thing. And look, I think when you're drafted in the 7th round, those guys can probably sneak through to the practice squad. I can't imagine a team, unless they really flash in training camp in the preseason. Then we do this every year for wide receivers, right? You got to put Michael Bandy on the roster. He's going to get swept up. It's a wide receiver league, and think about how much that guy lit up the preseason. No, he's going to make it through. He's going to make it through the practice.
It's going to be all right.
There's a reason why Brennan Rice was there in the 7th round, and Cornelius Johnson was there in the 7th round, and they'll probably make it through to the practice squad. So that's what I would say is, kind of how I walk away from the guy. But the other thing I want to mention from Derwin that was really interesting, 2 things. One, Popper brought up a great question about, we heard last year we're going to use them, move them all over the place, and it became overwhelming, and they did too much of it, and it took away from what Derwin's great at, and just was a negative. But yesterday, Jesse Minter's like, he's so good up high. He's so great coming off the edge. He can play in the slot. He's a great and it's like, oh no, here we go again. So it's great to have him today clarify. He said it's different. It's like he goes, trust me, it's different. He said, and what my interpretation was, and I asked the follow up to Popper's question because it's the way that I interpreted. He said it. I said, is it more that you're going to be moved around, but not in the game? It's going to be specific to the opponent. Like, depending on what the opponent is how they're going to use you that week. And he said, that's exactly it. So, like, I thought about week 1, Chris, and I'm like, hey, it's week 1, Derwin. Just go welcome Brock Bowers to the league. Just go over there. Why don't you welcome him to the league? Let him know what the NFL. He's puffing his chest out about how the SEC is, best college football league, and feels like he's got a lot of what the NFL could be based on playing in the SEC. Go ahead on over there and just shadow him for a little while.
That'll be your week 1 assignment.
Yeah, go ahead and let him know what the NFL is, and I think that could have lasting effects. Right now, you've planted the seeds of doubt. You've humiliated, and do I think that'll happen? I don't know. Brock Bowers might eat him up. He might be that guy. He might be that good and the best tight end prospect we've seen in 10 years. That could be the case. I hope not, but I'd like to see it. That's kind of what. So I was happy to hear that that's sort of the way he described it too. He's like, oh yeah, so it's going to be individual week is how. So shadow Kelsey against the Chiefs. We're going to play up high against this team that likes to throw it deep, and we want you as our last, line of defense. So that's, I think, more encouraging about Derwin.
Yeah, well, especially too with the interior of the defensive line. We've seen Joey move around. I remember a couple of years ago when Derwin and Khalil were lined up on the same side week one against the Raiders at home.
Right.
And that's another way to deploy him is as an edge rusher. I know that that's their strength in that room, but I mean, that's another way where Derwin can shine. And I just like seeing Derwin. I like seeing all these guys. They're happy. Like they are really
big time,
really energized, man. And it's just a complete 180 from what we saw towards the middle of last year when everybody kind of knew what it was going to be. You were out there today and you mentioned Tarheeb Still. Coach mentioned Alohi too. Like Alohi seems like the perfect guy for Coach Harbaugh's system. He's detail oriented. He knows where he's supposed to be at all times. But the guys like Christian Fulton or Henley, guys who we may see this year on the field a little bit more. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing of what Derwin said because you mentioned it, right? So Coach Harbaugh name check Alohi and Derwin I think they're the best safety tandem in the league. That's what I expect of them. But Derwin was asked about Tony Jefferson and, coming from the Baltimore system and how he knows it and having him around. And he said something very insightful. And I don't think it was meant to be a dig, but I think we're all asking, okay, is AJ Finley or JT Woods going to raise their hand? You got to have that third safety. And Derwin said, I actually wrote it down. Said, I hope Tony Jefferson sticks around because that's what's going to free me up to move all over the place. So that's what's important to remember. For Derwin to be able to do all of what they want him to do, they need to make sure they have a third safety that can play up high in a two-high shell in quarters with Alohi in order for Derwin to be a linebacker, to play at linebacker, to play at edge, to play the slot, to be the nickel, to shadow a tight end. So that's the one thing I would keep an eye on, Chris, over these 6 weeks is that safety market.
What's Justin Simmons doing? Where's Justin Simmons at this point?
Maybe he's waiting for a number. Maybe he's waiting for a team that wants to see whether or not they can find that safety, raise its hand, that believes they're a Super Bowl contender, and then he can hold out for more money. That's possible that he just hasn't had his number yet. But there are a number of safeties that are available, and I do think there's just hearing Derwin say that about Tony Jefferson, who did not play football last year, like that leads me to believe that that's the one position that this team's going to attack in the next 6 weeks.
It goes back to your point about 20 minutes ago when we talked about Bud Dupree, how that didn't happen a lot before. And Bud being available a few weeks ago, who's to say that another veteran, maybe not necessarily Justin Simmons, but possibly during training camp gets added to this roster. And those are the types of pieces that weren't necessarily there when these guys were deciding whether or not they're going to be Chargers. But, I'm going to best available.
I'm going to the safeties right now, Chris. So we still, Eddie Jackson's still out there.
How old's Eddie Jackson right now?
How old is he? He's old.
Yeah.
These guys are older. Keanu Neal is old. Sean Gibson's old. Our old friend Adrian Phillips, Tracy Walker, Jamal Adams, box safety. He's still out there. There's enough players out there.
He's only 30. Eddie Jackson, he may be old for a safety, but he is only 30. So, maybe.
Yeah, I do think one of those guys is I think they're going to sign a safety. And there still could be more guys that end up hitting the market. But I think they're going to want to find one before training camp because you're going to want to have them know they need to get their nose in the playbook between now and the start of training camp. So that to me is something. It's not a post-training camp thing. This defense is complicated, and you're going to want their nose in the playbook between now and the start of training camp so they can do the best to master it. And then when training camp comes around, hopefully they're as up to speed as possible, and they can maybe catch up after the first week. So that would be the one thing, just reading the tea leaves, that I feel like they got to go out and get. I think we got everything on Justin. What else did I have here? Coaching staff. Yeah, he mentioned Mark Trestman's name twice, who we've talked about how impressive we think he is. And clearly he and Mark are hitting it off. That's not they're surprising. They're both super cerebral guys. And Mark's been, an offensive innovator in this league, in the CFL, in college football, and he's former quarterbacks coach. So the fact that those two are they're gonna hit it off, and they're
somebody
really
asked if
it.
a fan asked if we could get Mark Trestman on the podcast. I'd love to get Mark Trestman on the podcast. So
as long as coach is fine with it, I think it's a fun and I don't even know if it's really fun. He's a very serious guy, but he's a thoughtful guy, and it's just those football lifers that have those circuitous paths on their resumes are always fun to talk to. Gus was a blast, man. Talking to Gus Bradley when he was the DC. There are just certain guys that tell great football stories, and there's none better than Gus. I miss the heck out of him, sitting in the meal room and just for hours listening to him tell stories. And Trestman's not the same style of guy as Gus, but he's got a million stories and he loves telling them, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, we definitely got to do that. But that's one thing that Justin brought up, was how impressive this coaching staff is. He mentioned Sanjay Lally, obviously Shane Day. He mentioned Mark Trestman and all these guys, and what an incredible staff they've put together. We talked about I don't think we talked about the tight ends. I think you scratched the surface on that, but
yeah. Well, you asked about Disley and Hurst, and I think Justin seems to be really locked in with those guys. He also referenced Parham and Stone Smart too. The fact that those guys are back, he's familiar with them, and it kind of forms a new look tight ends room.
I was trying to pay Will Disley a compliment because of what Coach Bischoff said, that there's only maybe three tight ends in the league that can block the C gap, and Will Disley is one of them, and he might be the best. And Herbert was very quick to point out, and I agree with him. He's like, he's not just a blocker. Will could catch the ball. And then he mentioned, by the way, Hayden can't just catch the ball. Hayden can block. I do believe they have two full-service tight ends, and that room may see the biggest jump of any room on the team, save linebacker, because I believe in the linebacker room, and I believe that it was sorely lacking last year. But the tight end room is going to make a big jump. Just Hayden Hurst put on a show in OTAs and in minicamp. He really flexed some muscle out there. In showing, let's not forget, guys, I've got a 700-yard, 7-touchdown season on my resume. And I fully believe with Justin Herbert, I can get right back to it.
Money, how much were we screaming about the tight end and not having a blocking tight end the last couple of years? Trey McKitty was supposed to be that guy, didn't work out. And, if you don't have the personnel to run the football and have the appropriate tight ends to run the football, you're not going to be able to run the football. And no. Right away, getting Disley and getting Hurst, that was like one of the first checkpoints on the list, is make sure that the tight end room has guys who can catch the ball, but also can block for a punishing running game.
Yeah. And credit to our friend Daniel Popper. I remember reading this column week in, every column. This team needs a blocking tight end. And it's not sexy, but sure enough, it crushed them. It absolutely crushed them last year. They could not get anything going in the run game because they did not have a tight end that could block. And now you got one that can really block. And I think you're going to see some 6 offensive lineman sets and some 6 offensive linemen and 2 tight end sets. You're going to see a lot of physicality out there. And JK was going through drills today. We can't all be, we can't fart rainbows and gold dust all the time. It does sound like Gus Edwards has an injury that's dogging him. That's a little more serious than we had come to understand. So Harbaugh got a little tight when he was talking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I think he'll be ready by training camp." So that's a bit of a concern. And that's why you didn't see him out there at OTAs, I'm guessing, because he's dealing with something that they're trying to figure out.
Well, let's end on this, because I know the pod that you do with Low Deal, people are giving you grief about Kamani Vidal's name. What is it?
It's Vidal.
It's Vidal.
It's Vidal. Right? It is Vidal.
I'm confusing myself now because I've heard it so many different ways.
So
not by you, by just different people.
I will do you the favor, because I had, look, I mean, this is my job. I mean, I'm the play-by-play guy, so I have to do it. but I did it to the point where I was like, okay, is this someone who's a big Troy Trojan fan? And
Ed,
he's like,
I saw your promo with Ed. Ed just won't let it go.
With Ed. So I tried to explain to him. I said, listen, this is what happens when you call a game. You get handed game notes, and they phonetically tell you, somebody whose name you may not understand, how you're supposed to pronounce it. So here we go. I'm going to take the camera off here, Chris, real quick. And I'm gonna,
this is great.
Oh, it's going to be backwards, though. But
no, it's good.
Is it good? See it right there?
Hold on. Come on. All right. Kimani Vidal.
All right, Ed. Kimani Vidal.
Happy Ed.
Right. So there you go. Kimani. I was like, it's right here. It's Kimani. And I was saying K instead of Key, so I was glad I looked it up. It's Kimani Vidal. So there we go. We got that one moving forward. Kimani Vidal. And yes, you did see a beer sitting on my desk. I'm not going to try to hide it. I'm waiting for this thing to end so I could pop it open. It's been a long day.
You should have popped it open at the 30-minute mark, dude.
Yeah, I probably could have.
Hey,
should have.
So what you're saying is, if Gus is not quite ready and JK maybe not quite ready, Kimani Vidal, get ready.
Isaiah Spiller,
get
Dotson.
ready.
Elijah Dotson is swole, by the way.
Yeah,
he was putting on a show. Our friend Ben from NFL, the great NFL photographer Ben Liebenberg, was out there because they had a bunch of new lenses and they were using practice to work on these lenses they're going to start using for games. And Elijah was getting his Lee Haney on, man, his Flex Wheeler. And he was like I thought he might have gone inside to the locker room and got a bunch of baby oil. He was all out there flexing for him. And I was like, dude, Elijah Dotson is freaking stacked. So, that could be in. And I think that's the other thing is like, it's so hard. Remember how good he looked, Chris, in the preseason last year and in training camp last year. And this offensive line was just beat up. It couldn't run block. So I don't think we have really got an honest assessment of what he might be able to do behind a solid offensive line, because that dude has some explosiveness to him too. That's going to be a fun competition, that running back room as well.
God, I can't wait for training camp. We got 6 weeks. We'll find content. I know it's going to get a little slow, but we'll find guests.
Or we'll just drink more
content, or we'll just do pods with glasses of red and maybe a beer or two. No,
that's exactly, or a beer or 3. That's what I like to say.
Exactly.
Why limit yourself? It's late. I'm at home. It's a late night Thursday.
We should take calls.
We need to get Greg home. Greg's exhausted. He's like, come on, guys, let's go. Can I get out of here?
Greg, we're sorry, man. Sorry to do this to you, but it was worth it. We wanted to get and it was Greg and Brian's suggestion too. Get all the practices out of the way, get all the presses out of the way, which was a smart move. So Greg, go home, money, enjoy your beer. I may do the same, and we'll be back next Thursday. For Matt, Money Smith, and Chris Hayre, this has been Chargers Week.
Cheers.